thanks for joining me. I know you just hopped off a plane literally from Switzerland, right?
Yeah, hi Troy. Yeah, it is, indeed.
Well, thanks for the effort, I appreciate it. So Dexter, Distalmotion, I've heard the buzz over here in the US, certainly been watching your progress over in Europe. For our audience, just give me a general overview of Dexter and Distal.
Sure. So Distalmotion first, we are a Swiss medical device venture, about 130 people by now, in clinical use commercially in Europe since last year. Have done in 20 plus procedures that Dexter is used every day. And what we do with Dexter is we introduce a novel category of robotic surgery, which we call on-demand robotic surgery, in which we put the surgeon back into control. So with Dexter, the surgeon uses robotics for suturing and dissection, which are the parts of the procedure where robotics is truly meaningful. But as the surgeon can stay scrubbed in when using Dexter, he or she can very quickly go back to the bedside, use the preferred stapler, preferred clip applier, and as Dexter is an open platform, also use the preferred imaging system, the preferred generator, really as part of an extension of laparoscopic thinking instead of a replacement of laparoscopy.
So then the surgeon can pick their favorite device to use versus having to be all bundled up in, let's just say, an intuitive platform where you might give away some qualities in your stapler, in your drivers.
Exactly. So what we offer as part of the Dexter instrument portfolio is fully articulated suturing and dissection tools, which are proprietary single-use instruments, which give you that advanced dexterity that Dexter is famous for. But because you can go back to the patient so quickly, you can use the stapler from the blue or the red company or whatever brand you prefer that you trust. You can use that because you are within the sterile workflow at all times. And that also applies to any other specialized tools that you might want to use as part of your procedure.
So it sounds like you have kept the fundamentals of empowering the surgeon where robotics is very appropriate, but allowed them to remain surgeons and literally, plugged into the patient.
Yeah, we went back when we started Distalmotion. We asked ourselves, we looked at robotics, the way it evolved over the past 20 years, and we thought that there's certain parts of robotics that are clinically undisputed, really, really valuable. And that is the dexterity that you get with robotics, the motion replication from the surgeon's console into the patient, the ergonomics. Those are truly meaningful features. And we thought, why is there no robotic platform out there that really focuses on what is clinically really meaningful? And that is where we saw an opening for us, and that is how Dexter ultimately emerged. But it goes along the same line of thinking that when you look at robotic platforms today, they don't have the best staplers, they don't have the best imaging system, they don't have the best ICG, they don't have the best 3D. So why try to create a closed platform that tries to be including their own imaging, their own staplers, when there are other brands out there, specialized imaging companies out there that do so good imaging? Then rather create a platform that allows surgeons to access that innovation independently from the robotic core capabilities. And that really is what Dexter is all about.
Well, that's super interesting because, right now, when you come in with a very large, let's just use Intuitive for a second here, right? Or CMR overseas or a Census on those soft tissue robots, when you come in, you've already got, if you don't have a robotic platform in your hospital already, you already have a suite of products in there that suddenly become replaced or compromised because it's all incorporated into the big form factor robot. So you're able to become a better economic solution potentially.
We are. We protect existing investments and we give the hospitals the option to access innovation from the best suppliers for each category instead of trying to put it into a monolithic solution. Whether you call that a closed console or an open console that allows you to see the bedside, all those other solutions that we are seeing that are emerging, they still are drone type systems that keep the surgeon away from the patient. And we believe that the surgeon must be in control. The surgeon must have ultimate choice of using the tools that he or she prefers. And that is what we enable with Dexter.
I'm sure you've got a plan to come to the US, eventually going to take your pathway through the FDA, and then come to the US. How do you view the US market versus the European market? Because the economics are different, decisions making different, and the centers of care are changing here as well, with ambulatory surgical centers and these focus factories coming out.
Yeah, so we obviously will come to the US at one point in the foreseeable future. And indeed, we see that ambulatory surgery centers seem to be a really good spot for us, where Dexter, with its value proposition, be that the clinical aspect, but also the economic arguments, are really favorable to place it in there. But it's still a bit early days to divulge a detailed go-to-market strategy here.
But you are going to be coming to the US?
Very much so,
okay,
yeah.
Good. It's good to hear. So when you ideated Dexter, you only knew what you knew at that point in time. Where the market is in 2023 today, what did you not predict, or what did you not see that now you're making adjustments for?
I would probably argue it or respond slightly differently here. We saw a lot of buzz around, data and AI and machine learning and automation. So far, we don't see any tangible, credible, clinically validated solution anywhere close on the horizon. You still want to have the surgeon to be the ultimate decision maker, and I think we use data. We have lots of data that we digest, but it's only there to support the surgeon to better use Dexter. And I think we've seen that hype fade away a little bit from data and AI, and it goes back to basics, and that is really what Dexter does.
Is there an advantage for you keeping it to a very elite and sophisticated fundamental system? Because the more features you add, the more complexity. The more features you add, the economics jump dramatically. And certainly your pathway through the FDA becomes a lot more torturous.
Simplicity is super central. It also then includes the training aspect of your surgical teams, the nurses. How do you set it up? How does it fit into existing ORs? How do you start to adopt Dexter as part of a procedure? When you're on a drone pilot type robotic platform, you need to be able to fly your plane from start to landing before you can take the first passenger on. With Dexter, as soon as you know the basics, the fundamentals of doing your tasks, you can do in your first procedure a small suture with Dexter and the rest laparoscopically if you're a laparoscopically trained surgeon. In the second procedure, you adopt Dexter a little bit more. You do a bit less laparoscopically, and so over time you can fade in robotics into your curriculum and into your procedure workflow.
The form factor is starting to get away from some of these larger consoles, open or closed, and starting to allow you to dial in how much of the robotic solution do you need with like a Moon Surgical,
Yeah.
Dexter, and supposedly the Hugo with Medtronic. So does that flexibility make it more attractive to the ASCs especially?
Size is important in that matter, but what I think is even more important when you look at these multi-card solutions that are out there, at first sight they all look similar, whether you look at the companies you just mentioned or others that are emerging. But what is truly important is where the cart is standing in the OR. The cart must use floor real estate that is not used neither by the surgeon nor the assistant nor the scrub nurse, and that is where Dexter has a unique arm design that places the cart in unoccupied real estate. When you compare that with other solutions, they always, they always stand in the way of the surgeon. They always are kind of an extension of the surgeon's arm, which means that if you want to access the patient, it's not only about retracting the robotic instrument, but it's also about moving the cart aside so that you can go in. And here with Dexter, we have a very compact solution that first fits into every OR, but then within also those small ORs uses real estate that is available for free, and that is really important when you want to enable that ability to switch and access the patient at all times.
Your end effectors, did I hear you say they were single use?
They are.
So you're able to get that complexity and that precision.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a Swiss company. You're able to get that precision and a single use, and the economics make sense.
Yeah, part of our core IP is the way we connect the instruments to the robotic platform, and we've drastically been able to simplify that, which ultimately allows us to make those instruments single use. And surgeons that are working with our platform today say that we are at least on par with the best solutions out there today. So there is no compromise here.
So what do you forecast over the next 24 to 36 months as markets start to get a little tight? We've got an inflationary system going on in the US and all around the globe. There's lots of money out there from a funding, and I think, did you just pick up 90 million last year?
A year ago, yeah.
Yep, so I'm guessing you're in pretty good shape right there from a runway perspective. But as leader, CEO of the company, what are you thinking about are the big strategic hurdles you have over the next 24 months?
So it's all about getting these systems installed and making sure that they're utilized. It doesn't make sense to just have robotic systems out there, but we really need to understand what it takes to drive utilization. And so far we see enormously good adoption in our pilot sites, and the next step will then be to scale that more broadly. But it's all about ultimately making sure that every morning the surgical team says, I'm going to roll that into the OR, I'm going to use Dexter. And this is where a lot of the success lies. Again, we don't see so much issues with economic barriers today because we offer a wiser approach to robotics when it comes to economics. And so that hasn't been a hurdle so far.
Interesting. And so when you look at launching a sophisticated robot, simple, elegant, but sophisticated, any robotic system is, how are you forecasting building a team around that? Because you've gotten yourself through prototype, V&V, commercial, you've done procedures. Now you've got to stand these up. You've got to get the sales team, you've got to get the training team, the support team. Now everything's for sale always, especially if you have investors. But what are you forecasting over the next 24 to 36 months on that, as much as you can share right now?
We are, because Dexter, ultimately every candidate we talk to, we invite them to have a look at what our physicians and clients say, and that is usually by far the strongest argument to get people on board, and that really then, we are in real life use. We're treating hundreds of patients. We are treating patients every day. We are across 20 plus procedures every day. And so Dexter is a super versatile solution that delivers value every day. It does it safely, it does it clinically meaningfully, and that in itself creates a very positive momentum that attracts talent, and that also allows then surgeons to spread the word to their friends and peers about their experiences that they have with us. And so far, we're on a good wave.
What procedures are the dominant procedures right now that you're entering the market in?
We have versatility. We have surgeons that do prostatectomies from start to finish with Dexter, hysterectomies, colorectal procedures, hernia repair, hemicolectomies, everything you find in the abdominal pelvic area. We don't see any one single procedure standing out because it's a general purpose tool and it works in all those different settings because it is so flexible. It really fits into the existing workflows. And so every time a surgeon wants to suture something or do a dissection that is a bit more precise than just a rough, dissection, then robotics makes sense, and then Dexter is available.
And they can just bring that right into the sterile field, or they themselves can come right into the sterile field and cycle through them doing it themselves and using the robot where it's an advantage.
Where it makes sense for them, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Anything else we didn't chat about before we go?
Don't think so at that stage. We are very happy with with the journey that we're on at that point in time, and we see that ultimately in hospitals that already have a robotic platform, we see that they're asking themselves, how much complexity can we handle? And typically what we see is when you come in with a solution that is truly differentiated and that reduces also complexity with regard to your expectations on the skills you need to have on surgical teams, when you can get that complexity down, that is a really big enabling factor that is usually quite a bit underestimated, and here by simplifying it, by allowing the nurses to use the imaging systems, the trocars, the generators that they're already familiar with, and have a simple compact robotic platform go in, that is a really low barrier, and that is something that should never be overlooked, underestimated when designing a robotic platform.
And you bring up an interesting point before we go, is it doesn't sound like there's a new workflow to reimagine either. It fits right in.
When you as we work with 3 arms, so one for the left hand and right hand of the surgeon plus the endoscope control arm, you can keep your laparoscopic pore placement. You don't need to go into that dedicated, line placement that is known from other companies that you need to do to avoid your 4 or 5 arms from colliding. You don't have that issue, so you can use your exactly same, your established laparoscopic pore placement, and that also reduces, the amount of change the surgeon needs to undergo when adopting robotics as part of their procedures. And so it's all those little things that ultimately make it much more compelling and convincing for surgeons to then use and adopt robotic platforms, because it's undisputed that robotics allows them to simplify the complex parts, which are suturing and dissection, and gives them a more ergonomic way of working for those really difficult and exhausting parts of the workflow.
Fascinating. Well, we'll be watching for Dexter in Distalmotion, and hopefully see you here in the U.S. sooner than later. But I appreciate your time today, Michael.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Mullings from SDTS and Sagis, the next big thing. Be well.